This is a journey into sound. A journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new values, and a new experience.
Welcome to the Ghee Spot podcast. I'm your guide, Katie Silcox, bringing you your weekly self-love soundbite. Join us for conversations around sex, spirit, and all things self-care. All things self-care. All things self-care.
This is a journey into sound.
You are a Ghee Spot podcast.
Oh, hello, lovers of life. It is Katie Silcox here with you on another beautiful, rainy, post-Hurricane Florence, Virginia, early fall. We are in September. It is the season of reconnecting to that part of us that knows winter is coming. That part of us that senses how the air changes and cools, and there's a different quality to everything. There's a sense of what is to come, that sense of snuggling up by the fireside, that sense of being held, that sense of community and candlelight, that sense of hibernation and death. And in that wild surrender into the dark night of our soul, that is winter. We will and we can and we can and we always will be reborn. I sit before you with some soothing piano music and some candles lit because I want to talk about a topic that may require you to be soothed like a baby. And that is being triggered. This word, I think about my mama, and she said to me and my sister one day in the kitchen, she said, "What is this triggered y'all keep saying?" And I said, "Well, Mama, it's this word that we use that it's kind of like when someone says something that causes you to feel some feelings light up." And one of my friends calls it feels like a glow stick has been lit up inside my heart. I feel triggered. It's a good word because it describes the way it feels. And we've all been there and we've all felt it. And my mom said, "Well, when y'all say triggered, it triggers me." The word trigger, my mom says, is triggering. And I think there's some wisdom in that. I think there's some real wisdom in that. And the nervous system supports this. The way that our nervous system works supports this. And even just saying that word causes that sensation, just like saying the word trauma. And these are words that we may need to use, but I think that we need to use them judiciously. I think we need to really use them judiciously. Nowadays, people are getting triggered over everything. And there's this sense of being afraid of having a perspective, lest it trigger someone else. And yet we live in a time where it's more important than ever to trust your own inner guide and inner heart and inner wisdom. The problem happens when we begin to search for who we are on the outside world, which is where many of us live. We need to, as spiritually savvy, awakened men and women, come into this place whereby what informs me of who I am is inside, is me. Right? Or is my connection to spirit, to God, whatever you want to call it. So why I'm inspired to talk about this is it's been on my heart for a while, especially given the current social political climate that we live in. And in our world, in the world of yoga and New Age and spirituality and healing, a lot of these buzzwords, right? There is a lot of back and forthing I've noticed on Instagram and Facebook. And, I think these platforms are incredibly important places for us to have conversations with one another. As you all know, the downside is that you aren't actually having a conversation. Instagram and Facebook are literally the lowest common denominator of the heart. That isn't to say they can't be used wisely, and that isn't to say that they can't be used for communication. But in such delicate and sensitive matters, to think that the social media realm and the comment box under today's meme is going to be the place where you are going to have your platform for sudden activism, I think is foolhardy. We must, if we want to truly be awakened and empowered creatures on this planet, we have to actually, as Tantra teaches us and all these great mystical teachings teach us, take radical responsibility for our own inner glow stick. Our nervous system, unfortunately, really can only be rewired through our own personal effort. We can hold space for one another. We can look into each other's eyes and activate certain mirror neurons that invoke more joy and invoke more compassion. That's true. But at the end of the day, we have to be the ones that process our own pain. We have to be the ones that process our own heartbreak. We have to be the ones that process the way others have failed us and hurt us and even wronged us in very, very horrific ways. And what I love about the study of these ancient methodologies, Tantra, shamanism, Ayurveda, what I love about yoga in the depths of its psychology, what I love about it is that it outlines the human experience as so multi-layered. You have many different bodies according to the tradition. They're called koshas, and it means layers or sheaths. Like little Russian dolls, you're stacked into yourself. You are not just this physical body, although you are this body, and spirit weaves itself into your body. Spirit wakens the body, spirit breathes the body. But you aren't just the body, you're also your psyche, your thoughts, your feelings, your old memories. And you aren't just that. You're also all of the energies of your body, all the bioelectric impulses innate in this human form. You're also energy, but you aren't just those things. You're also this spirit body that holds, according to some traditions, lifetimes and lifetimes of experience, lifetimes and lifetimes of experience. And you're not just that, you're also more. And so what the Koshas teachings help us understand is that I have so many layers to who I am. One of it's the fact that I'm a white woman, I guess you could call me, although I'm, like many of us in the United States, quite the mutt and quite the mix. I was born in the South. That's a layer of my identity. I'm a woman. That's a layer of my identity. I went to a certain college. That's a layer of my identity. Today, I have a career as a writer and a teacher, and that's a certain layer of my identity. I'm a sister. I'm a daughter. That's a certain layer of my identity. I'm a lover to a man, and that's a certain layer of my identity. I'm a friend. But those are just a few. And when I sit with you guys on these podcasts and when I teach and when I am with the amazing beings that tend to gravitate towards these teachings, and in Ayurveda school, this online platform that we have, we meet every single week, and we're this 100-person tribe of women who come together every week, and we learn and we hold one another and we pray together and we speak together and we commune together. And that's another aspect of my being. And when I'm in that place, I'm not white and I'm not a woman and I'm not from the South. I am spirit. And yet it's really important that we acknowledge all the other layers. We have to acknowledge our cultural conditioning. We have to acknowledge the way gender informs our understanding of ourselves and reality. We have to acknowledge the way that we're all living with certain privileges because of our race. We have to acknowledge all these different layers. And so what I love about Tantra is that Tantra says that when you are holding things that seem to be opposites, you are getting closer to the truth. When you are walking in what feels like a great paradox, you are getting closer to the truth. And so what I just want to encourage us out there, and I know I have a lot of listeners that know what I'm talking about, when we speak about spiritual activism, when we get on our soapbox out on social media, when we come to share our heart, we have to really make sure that we're identifying first and foremost with ourselves as something that's beyond all these things that are triggering us, that are conditioning us, that are limiting us. This is one of the definitions of Tantra, to stretch ourselves beyond what feels like our very real limitations sometimes. But oftentimes, many of them are the ones that we unconsciously stay victimized by and cling to. There is a certain identification that we can have with our disease. There's a certain identification that we can have with our cultural group or our racial group. There's a certain identification we can create around our oppression. And we all are born into certain, some of us more than others, levels of oppression. And these are real and they need to be addressed. But when I wrap my identity into these things, I sell myself short. I identify with only one aspect of the hundreds of things that I am, and I often miss out on the biggest thing that I am, which is just the same me as in you, and the meaning of the word namaste. There is something that is alive in my heart that wants to be happy, that wants to be seen, that wants to thrive, that wants my children and my family to thrive. And that thing has been shown to exist across all cultures, all races, and all time. And it's that one common thing, that human love force field, that we have to tap into first and foremost as we walk into the very treacherous and arduous and necessary journey of dealing with sexual predation, racial inequality, white privilege, inherent sexism, patriarchal consciousness, abuse of our beautiful planet, and all the other hundreds of issues that are now like the vast ocean being churned. These poisons are being pulled to the surface. You may know the great story of the great ocean of milk. In the Hindu lore and symbology, there's a beautiful story of a grumpy yogi, a grumpy sage who was sitting meditating. And he was known as the grumpy sage for a reason. He was usually in a bad mood despite his wisdom, which is a teaching in and of itself. And what that teaches us is that you can be a great, accomplished person. You can be very intelligent. You can even be wise and still have a bad mood. We are complex beings. So this great sage is sitting there meditating in it. And unlike most days, this day he was actually in a good mood. And the celestial nymphs in the sky, the devas, the goddesses, the little goddess fairies, noticed that this normally quite grumpy sage was having a really good day. And they were so surprised that they were filled themselves with joy to see him in a different state. And they came down and descended from the heavens and put around this grumpy sage's neck this beautiful garland of a type of jasmine flower that would never die, this sort of non-ending fragrant flower. And the grumpy sage woke from his meditation to find himself bedecked and bejeweled in these forever fragrant jasmine flowers. And they said, "This is our gift to you because it brings us so much joy today, that you are happy." And the grumpy sage was filled with even more happiness, and he made the decision that, the next person that comes along, I feel so much joy in my heart that I want to give this joy away. And so the next person that comes along, I'm going to give them this jasmine garland. And so, sure enough, as the story goes, as legend has it, despite all the odds, the next person that comes along is Indra, the beautiful god sustainability and wild sustainability. This god Indra of the sky comes along, and the grumpy sage says to him, "Oh, great god, Indra, please take this flower as a gift of my offering." The Indra kind of scoffs and, "Old man, what are you doing giving me a flower?" And what Indra was riding on, by the way, was a white elephant, this sort of symbol of steadiness and groundedness. And elephants, of course, are very, very wise. And the elephant was, at the time, walking by, this tusk sort of passed by the garland that the old sage was holding up, and the elephant became intoxicated by the smell and starts swinging its trunk left and right and up and down, and swings the trunk, and the garland flies off the end of his trunk and lands on the ground. And in his wild, drunken ecstasy over the intoxicating smell, the elephant stamps, stomps, clomps on the flowers. And the grumpy sage is so forlorn. "I can't believe it, this beautiful gift I've given you, and you've trampled it." And he makes a vow. He places a curse on Indra, and he says, "From now on, you and all your god and goddess friends will slowly lose their power." And Indra laughs and says, "Yeah, right. Go back to your cave, old man." And so they part ways. And of course, as the legend goes, slowly the gods and goddesses begin to lose their power, and the great god of the sun begins to become cold in the sky and pale, and earth loses its luster, and the moon without the sun becomes just this boring rock hurtled into space. And Agni, this god of fire, becomes freezing cold and is shivering and can't get warm. And even the god of death, Lord Yama, he ceases to have his power. And you can only imagine what the world would be like if nothing was ever able to die. Death not only is the god of death, but death is the god of beauty, because it is the fact that we are impermanent that makes us so damn beautiful and precious. And all these gods start to lose their power. And the story is quite lengthy, and the shorter version is that basically they are forlorn. They plead to Lord Brahman, "Tell us what to do." And he says, "You must go to all the four corners of the lands and gather up the medicinal herbs. Come back here to the ocean and meet me." And indeed they did. "And meet me here and throw these herbs into the ocean with all of your heart's offerings and prayers and all of your sacrifices, and we'll begin to take this massive golden spoon and we will stir." And they began to churn, and that ocean of milk swirled and swirled and churned and churned and churned. And of course, this is the churning of our own life. This is the churning we're experiencing today as I sit here with you. This is the churning of our time. And Brahman says, don't worry, that when you churn, you will eventually get this golden nectar, this elixir of immortality, this drops of freedom will come. And they churn and churn and churn day and night. And eventually, from the bottom of the ocean emerges this awful poison called the hala hala. And this poison rises to the top, and even just hearing that word hala hala, the gods and goddesses would faint with disgust. It was awful. And they said, "What is this? We've been churning, we've offered our herbs, we've done it with intention, and my God, it's worse than ever." And of course, this is us right now. We're doing our practices. We are becoming more awake. We are walking the walk and not just talking to the talk. This is many of us on the planet right now. And yet it's getting worse, it seems. And the ancients always understood this, because it was, in the words of Brahman, it's the poison that rises first. Silly, silly gods. Keep stirring. And don't worry, he says, Shiva will be here soon. And Shiva is a word that in Sanskrit means the silent witness, the one who brings great auspiciousness and success to those who practice. the practices of love and the practices of awakening. And sure enough, Shiva shows up and he takes the hala hala. He takes all the poison from this churning of the ocean of our heart and the pain of our past and the pain of our trauma and the pain of our triggers. And Shiva, the part of you, the part of me that can witness and watch and compassionately gaze, drinks the poison. And in the mystical mythology, his throat turns this lovely color of cobalt blue as he's able to turn this poison into this blue force field in his throat chakra. And the gods keep churning and churning. Now that the poison's gone, something else emerges. And it's, of course, Venus of the sea, right? Lakshmi comes forth, and she's the most beautiful, resplendent, sensual, auspicious, gift-bringing, abundance-giving, jeweled one. And it's not just about the joys of life or the money or the home or the success or the sex. It's Lakshmi's deeper meaning is she is the bounty and the beauty of your heart. She is the bounty and the beauty of you being able to live your dream. And our dream is to live a life where we feel that there is love and we are love. Like, what greater gift is there than that? And Lakshmi comes forth. And so I just want to share that story. And I learned this story from the beautiful Sienna Sherman, who's a sister of mine. And she learned the story from one of her tantric scholar sages. And we just keep passing these stories along. And of course, you are every character and you're every aspect of everyone in the story. This is a story about our own psyche. We alone are responsible for churning our own ocean, and we alone are responsible for asking Shiva. In other words, the part of me that can remain steady and calm, that can be a gaze of love within the shitstorm that is public and personal life. I think that we fool ourselves if we think that an Instagram meme and me commenting on a text box is going to be the way that we right social wrongs or that we heal inner trauma or inner pain. I was inspired by this entire talk, really was inspired by this gal that I follow on Instagram. And I try to follow women mainly and men that inspire me, that speak something that my heart wants to hear. And her name's Krista Black Gifford. I don't know her. And I love that she says, I'm here finding God in my feminine hips, lips, and wobbly bits. She is rad. I don't know her, but how much can you know about somebody on the Instagram? But I'm inspired by her, and here's why. She posted something and I don't know if it's real or not, but it was William Golding, who was a British novelist and playwright and poet in the early 1900s. He died in 1993, and so he's born in 1911, and so he is quoted in her meme as saying, now here's a man who understands women, and that's the sort of tagline. And then here's his quote. I think women are foolish to pretend they are equal to men. They are far superior and always have been. Whatever you give a woman, she will make greater. If you give her sperm, she will give you a baby. If you give her a house, she will give you a home. If you give her groceries, she will give you a meal. If you give her a smile, she will give you her heart. She multiplies and enlarges what is given to her. So if you give her any crap, be ready to receive a ton of shit. Now, I think that this has later been shown that maybe he didn't even say this, but what I will tell you, listeners, if you're interested in ancient Tantra, some of Tantra is really sexist and patriarchal, but most of it's really beautiful. And what the Tantra says is the nature of the feminine is all these things that he's saying. I'm a woman, and I have to say, even though, I'm not a wife or a mother, many of you may not know that. I hate cleaning the house too. I'm going to admit it. I would make a terrible mother and housewife, I think. Who knows? Maybe it will happen one day. I don't necessarily anticipate it, and I'm cool with that. But my point is, I really feel this way. I feel that I can take something and turn it into something bigger. There's some wisdom here. And there's some funny, like, sexist stuff going on. The point of me sharing the quote with you guys isn't to talk about whether the quote has value or not. It may have some value and it may have some non-value in your opinion. The reason I bring it up is because there are 58 comments, and it's like a somewhat of a I wouldn't say a screaming match, but sort of a girl fight is going on about how sexist it is and reductive, and not all women cook and not all women decorate, and this is playing into old gender stereotypes. And you know, then you have Spiritually Sexy, which is this chick, right? And she says, I've squeezed 4 small watermelons out of a tiny hole in my crotch. I'll take the pedestal every once in a while. And I just thought, who is this girl? She is so rad, right? And I'm gonna have to tag her and tell her that I talk about her with so much admiration in our podcast, because the quote I want to read to you from her is someone said that they read this and felt incredibly triggered, which is, you know, the way that we started this particular podcast, right? This idea of being triggered being a really popular word in our reality right now. And don't get me wrong, like, when I saw Donald Trump in the political debates stalking Hillary Clinton, and when I heard that he had said this thing about grab them by the pussy, oh my God, I can tell you, I felt triggered. Like, this is a real thing, right? But I think it can sort of become problematic when we take it to the streets of Instagram, and it's almost like everyone is now looking like like policing in a way, and just waiting for the moment to find what triggers them. I feel it. I feel that people are waiting for it, and there is a certain sadomasochistic pleasure in finding someone online that you can offer up your trigger to. And Spiritually Sexy says something that I really love. She says this: for all of you who are triggered, remember, the trigger is in your, capital letters, nervous system, which means it isn't happening to you. It is happening for you. Triggers happen when trapped energy in us gets hit by something in the internal world, creating a point of release, usually for an alchemizing moment to reveal our true heart and heal a little heal a little more. Internal pain is always longing to heal. Yes. Trapped and stored trauma, offense, bitterness, anger, it always points to something deeper in our bones. This mama is on it. So this guy, right or wrong, could be a gift to reveal and usher in a brutally honest moment that helps us heal our collective conscious female wound. Yes, sister. Yes, Spiritually Sexy. I want to applaud you, and I want to hold you up and say this is really what the nervous system does. And so how can we hold those who harm others accountable in one hand and bring them to justice as best as possible and change our outer world, and at the same time take total responsibility for our own triggers? When Donald Trump won the election, I cried for 2 days and felt so upset. And I did a lot of work around it, right? It's what this gal is saying. And I had to go into a lot of my own father wound and a lot of my own experiences with men in the past that weren't healing and that weren't healthy and that were at times sexually inappropriate. And my own experience as a woman, right? I had to go into all of that because of him. And yet now I can tell you that I'm in a place where I'm going to be voting the way I'm going to be voting, and I'm going to be supporting who I want to support in alignment with my heart. And I'm going to be standing up for what's right. I'm going to be celebrating the fact that so many women are running for political office. I'm going to do what I can. For me, the way I work, my activism is on a one-on-one basis. And there are secret ways you can do that in every single day. But inside the alchemy of my own heart, when I see DT, which is my name for Donald Trump, when I see DT, I hold him like a baby in my arms. I'm at the place now where I see him as this tiny, tiny infant. And yes, we need to get the infant out of control. But if we haven't gotten to a place where we can work with what's going on inside, we are unfortunately going to find ourselves right back where we started. Pain has a way of finding its own oppressor to remember. Trauma and pain have a way of being stored in the body, and those stored memories have a way of desiring completion. They will seek out. That's how freaking powerful we are. They will seek out opportunities to complete. And so if you're listening out there and you feel triggered out on Instagram, what I ask you to do is ask, what is it? How is there something in me that is attempting to be completed through this trigger? How am I perhaps unconsciously seeking the pain, seeking out the pain? And how can I use that to feel even more deeply? I don't believe that Instagram memes are a good platform for your sudden activism. I don't think that they're a good platform for healing true trauma. I think people need to work with a therapist, with a healer, with a shaman, with a yogini, someone who has the knowledge on how to hold space for your deeper healing. It's a beautiful rainy day. I hope you've enjoyed this long story and rant on moving out of trigger, taking responsibility, and churning up the ocean and being able to extract the nectar as well as the poison. We would love to have you as a part of our tribe. We have a beautiful online subscription program where you get a video class, an audio lecture, a PDF full of juicy tidbits and tips and tricks, and a private online Facebook group that we post to a lot. And I do live sessions in a couple of times a month. And that's $18 a month. You can find out more at the link in our show notes. We also have the next upcoming Ayurveda training certification, and that's happening January 2019. We are already about 50 or 60 women, and we would love to have you as a part of this tribe. If Tantra and Ayurveda are something that you're interested in and always wanted to study, if you are a nurse, a doctor, a social worker, a massage therapist, a yoga teacher, a mom, if you're a woman, this training is really, really special. We meet every week. It is so supportive. And I am bringing in not only myself, but some of the best Ayurveda teachers in the world that have been my friends and inspirations. And that's starting again in January 2019. So hit us up. Come on in. Also, leave us a beautiful 5-star review if you love us, and subscribe to this podcast. And that helps other people find us. Thank you guys, and have a beautiful, beautiful day.
ফুটে ফুল আপন সুখে